Our hearing today, as I mentioned, focuses on the fiscal cost and economic consequences of the Biden-Harris administration's failed economic and mainly energy policies. That's the focus. Those costs have been significant and measurable, and the consequences have been manifold and dire. The whole of government regulatory attack on conventional fuels, the increased taxes on oil and gas, and massive market distorting green energy subsidies have choked the lifeblood of this economy, the greatest in the world. It's also crushed our working families with a cost of living crisis, and it has compromised our national security by making the United States more reliant on foreign adversaries. The Biden-Harris administration has issued 250 executive actions against one industry, an industry that employs 10 million people with high-wage jobs, represents almost 10% of our total economy, and has had, no doubt, a positive impact on every facet of our daily lives by producing the most reliable, affordable, and abundant source of energy. As a result of our God-given blessed resources and the most innovative and efficient energy industry operators, we have the strongest and most dynamic economy in the world. It's why we have the greatest fighting force in the world. And it's why we are the world's superpower. But today, the failed energy policies driven by what I believe is an extreme climate agenda has undermined all of the above. It's resulted in higher gas prices at the pump, as high as $5, over $5, the highest we've ever seen and experienced in this country. On average, it's been $1 more per gallon in cost than the previous administration. The cost of electricity has gone up, now 25 to 30% for families. The total consumption cost for our average income families is almost twice what it was in the previous administration. Policies have consequences, and that consequence for families is a whopping $1,700 per family per year. These costs on the economy and on our consumers, the American people, are a direct result of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. On his first day in office, President Biden canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have saved us in transportation costs and safety, $50 billion. But it didn't stop there. It was all critical infrastructure in the links of the supply chain, from export terminals to permitting refineries and other pipelines. Biden-Harris's moratorium on drilling on public lands will cost $33 billion in lost GDP and roughly 60,000 jobs. There have been overreaching and overburdensome emission regulations coming out of the EPA. Think about the methane gas rule. We've seen a 66% reduction by the industry over the last several years in methane gas emissions, but there are layer upon layers of these burdensome and I believe unnecessary regulations that the cost of which are passed on to consumers. The EV mandate alone, the tailpipe emissions, $870 billion over roughly 20 years. They've depleted, this administration, our strategic petroleum reserves to smooth off the edge of the spike in prices, and we're now down with a strategic petroleum reserve of a 40-year low. On the subsidy side, $800 billion in tax subsidies for green energy corporations. And some studies say that 70% of that value will be accrued to China because of their rare earth mineral mining and component parts to the renewable energy industry. The EV tax credit is in many ways going to the upper middle and upper income individuals. And I want to dig into that with you, Ms. Jackson, and the impact on middle class families and our minority communities here in the United States. Look, the fiscal health of our country is in decline. I think we all agree with that. You can't look at the balance sheet. You can't look at CBO's projections. You can't look at the debt to GDP, which is higher than it's been since World War II and more relative peace and prosperity and not be concerned. We have to rein in spending and we have to grow this economy. We have to have policies that encourage and foster growth. And central to that are good energy policies. If we can grow 1%, we can save $3 trillion to put against the deficit. If we grow 1%, we can add $10,000 over 10 years in hardworking Americans' pocketbooks, and we can bring the debt to GDP, the indebtedness of our country, down by at least 20 percentage points. So growth is key, and the lifeblood for that growth is energy and good energy policies. And I think we've seen the opposite of it: disastrous energy policies, disastrous results. We have to make a change if we're going to get our country on a good fiscal path and hand it to our children in a manner that gives them the opportunities and prosperity that we've all enjoyed.